It is the Matt Murphy Radio Show, and a good afternoon, may I be the first to say. It's 12:05. Hello, how you doing? Super Talk 99.7 WTN is the radio station. My name is Matt Murphy. I'm your host until 3 o'clock, or they boot me off the radio, whichever comes first. It is Wednesday. It is January 30. Man, is it the 31st already? Despite the fact that my sheet that Belkay gave me says the 30th, I do believe it's the 31st, although now I'm doubting myself. No, it's the 31st.
Yeah, it's the 31st.
It's the last day of January. It's our episode 502 of the proceedings here today, and we appreciate you being here. We count them up so you don't have to. Super Talk 99.7 WTN on a variety of platforms, to include the radio station, obviously, 99.7 FM. You can also join us on any manner of streaming platform of your choosing. I mean, if you stream news or conversation or information or music anywhere, we're there. Just type in Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And then, of course, there's Super Talk TV, available for you in full Technicolor on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. Episode 502 is up and running. You'll see my ugly face there. You will not see Belkay, which is why we refer to him as Headless Bell. He regularly refuses to go on television because of the multiple warrants against him. However, he does participate by giving us a title to every episode, and today's episode 502 is entitled
Matt Murphy, the Justin Bieber of talk radio. Libertarian lunch, noon to 3, whipped cream and Nutella.
I feel insulted.
Why? He's a very successful pop star.
Yeah, but he peed in a bucket. Remember when he peed in the bucket?
I've done that.
You've peed in a mop bucket?
Oh, it wasn't a mop bucket, no.
He was wanting to go to the bathroom, and he had to go to the bathroom, and he was walking through a kitchen, and he peed in a mop bucket.
You're remembering him for the wrong things.
What should I remember?
Look, Taylor Swift has been taken. I had to give somebody... I'd compare you to somebody that was successful.
I don't want to cast aspersions on the ideas presented on the Chris Hand Show when Chris is not here to defend himself, but I believe that anything that elevates Taylor Swift beyond the elevation that she currently enjoys is a bad move. I think it's a mistake. It's a bad move. So I don't know that we need to introduce grandma to Taylor Swift. I don't think that's a good idea.
Do you remember who she endorsed in the 2018 Senate campaign?
I do not.
Phil Bredesen.
Who's
in that seat?
Marsha Blackburn?
Marsha Blackburn. So she couldn't even get her home state, her adopted home state.
I'm not suggesting that Taylor Swift would move the needle. I don't believe necessarily that Taylor Swift will move the needle. I think that, maybe she moves the needle to a certain degree on the 18 to 25-year-old class going to vote. Maybe that needle moves a bit, but I don't think it moves enough. This is what I'm dealing with when it comes to Taylor Swift. This is an actual post from an actual human being that actually does politics online. This from yesterday evening at 6:40 in the p.m. By now, everyone, and this guy's not kidding, by now everyone knows Taylor Swift is a government psychop. And this is exactly why corporate media is having a meltdown about it.
This is ridiculous.
4 years ago, the Pentagon Psychological Operations Unit pitched to NATO about turning Taylor Swift into a social influence asset. In 2019, George Soros bought her entire music catalog,
which she was not a fan of.
Did he really?
Yes.
Is that true?
He was part of the consortium. That's where Scooter Braun got his funding to make the purchase of Big Machine.
Is that why That's why she re-recorded everything?
No, it's because she didn't want Scooter having anything to do with it.
That's what I'm saying, though. That was her response to George Soros buying her catalog. Anyway, let's go on with this gentleman's theories here. So Taylor Swift is a government psychop. 4 years ago, the Pentagon Psychological Operations Unit pitched to NATO about turning Taylor Swift into a social influence asset. In 2019, George Soros bought her entire music catalog. In 2020, she came out as a raging liberal Biden supporter after previously being politically neutral. That's actually inaccurate, but whatever. In 2023, all of this is inaccurate, so why am I pointing that one out? In 2023, her Eras tour raked in higher revenue than the GDP of 50 countries. In 2023, she helped register over 35,000 2,000 new voters in a single Instagram post. And now she's dating a Pfizer and Bud Light agent in the United States of America in the NFL. The NFL being the most watched live sporting event in the United States. Even the New York Times wrote a story on how Biden is courting her for an endorsement and how he wants to appear on stage with her. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to put it all together. You just have to be paying attention.
This is such a clown.
And my response to Benny was to say, anybody that believes this, well, I'll read the response. Anyone who believes this is a complete idiot. Anyone who believes that is a complete idiot. And so that is all I have to say about that. Now, we do have lots to get into today on the program. You're invited to be a part of the show, 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. You can either call the show, and I always invite turning a monologue into a dialogue. Come on, let's bring it. You can also join us on the super text line, which is, as always, up and running, and always good activity going on over there. Matt writes in, a Pfizer and Bud Light agent, ha, ha, ha. Well, you know, it is what it is. Andy says, CIA tested facial recognition first at the Taylor Swift tour. So this is kind of adding to the conspiracy. Maybe we can add that to the line of conspiracy thought with regard to Taylor Swift. It's embracing by mocking her from a person she loathes. It's epic trolling, and eventually the Swifties will appreciate it and not be so rancorous to Mark's Trump. I don't know what that means. It is a way to win them over without capitulation of the culture of Swift. Where do you think? I try not to be the old man in the room when I say all of this. When's the last musical artist that captured the imagination in this way? Was it Bieber?
No, not to this extent. Honestly,
I don't know what extent you would call this. I mean, we're pretending. I mean, she's
Beatles level.
Taylor Swift is Beatles level.
Yes.
Huh. Okay. I mean, when is the last entertainment figure Tiger Woods?
I mean, he was giant, but he wasn't this big.
Tiger Woods is this big.
No.
Tiger Woods in the 2000s was this big.
Mm.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
Well, no, you haven't been wrong yet.
So Taylor Swift is the biggest thing since the Beatles?
Musically, yeah, and certainly
Michael Jackson?
Maybe a close second.
Madonna?
No. God, please.
What do you mean, no, God, please? No, everyone in my school, every kid in my school, every female in my school was wearing that Madonna crap from Desperately Seeking Susan.
That was a good movie.
I mean, Madonna was big.
She was huge. But
I just don't. Taylor. I mean, I know that I'm a 50-year-old man, but I do not see. I don't understand why people are treating her like someone that can affect the outcome of a political election. In a way that others cannot. Like, you're suggesting that it's one thing to get them to sign up. I mean, you're suggesting that she can command of her minions that they go to the polls and they vote.
No. Again, going back to my point, she couldn't even get Bredesen elected in her adopted home state. She's not going to have that much of an influence on the Trump election. She's preaching to the converted.
7150. I mean, I'm getting a lot of response out of this. I mean, Brian writes in, and Brian is exactly right. I mean, Taylor Swift might be nice and all, but she ain't no Conway nor Loretta. I know that. I mean, that's big. Them's big stars. I mean, when she's got a Twitty City, y'all let me know. Until then,
no Dolly World for her.
If you say God is my witness, whether you think it's true or not, if you say Taylor Swift is bigger than Dolly Parton,
are we talking sales?
I'm coming in the room and I'm gonna hit you. So I'm just promising that will happen. Okay. So you can believe it, but just don't say it because you will hurt me.
Thankfully,
you will emotionally scar me if you say it.
Thankfully, pull that off the skimmer for HR.
You just don't say it. That's all I'm saying. I'm warning you. Whether you believe it or you can believe whatever you want.
Oh, not to derail this, but did you see where Dolly is Dan Rather's big interview this month?
Who?
Dolly is Dan Rather, his show,
I know
the
who
big
Dolly
interview.
is. I'm trying to ask you about the other guy.
Dan Rather. He does that. He's got that show, The Big Interview now, where he interviews a music star for like an hour.
Well, good for him.
I saw a piece of it. It's pretty interesting. But anyway, back to Taylor.
I mean, I would love to see that for Dolly. And actually, as bad as Dan Rather got toward the end of his career with regard to what he did on CBS, I think he's actually a pretty good interview on those things. So, somebody's saying Garth Brooks.
Yeah, I'd put him as comparable.
All right. I just I try to appreciate, and I try not. Yeah, I did too. Ann said I thought Dan Rather died. My grandma. Oh, every time I hear of Dan Rather, I think of my grandmother. I love my grandmother so dearly. God rest her soul. Every time Dan Rather, know why that made me giggle like it did, but even when I was a kid, it made me giggle. 1744. You're trolling me, and I will not dignify your troll with a response. 2968 says Taylor Swift isn't a patch on Dolly's left you-know-what. And I will not say what 2968 said, but I would agree with that. Look, a lot of people want to make a big deal out of this. Here's my takeaway. Is Taylor Swift a big deal? Sure. She's a big deal, especially amongst the younger generation. A lot of people like her. A lot of people like her music. I do not know her, and so I cannot tell you whether I would like Taylor Swift or not. I would say that I have been exposed to a little bit of her music, and it's not for me. But you know what? I'm not a music aficionado. I'm not a music guy. I mean, I listen to a lot of 1960s and 1970s stuff, so I'm a very eclectic music listener in terms of what I like and what I do not like. That said, I don't make a matter of taste into a matter of fact. And I would encourage that we need to do less of that in our society. Let's not make a matter of taste into a matter of fact. Just because I am not a fan of Taylor Swift, I don't judge you for being a fan of Taylor Swift. It's a matter of taste, whatever. It is a different deal, in my opinion, to suggest that an entertainer along her lines could actually affect the outcome of a political election. I don't want to believe that's the case, although I do think that she could move the needle amongst a certain population set, mainly the 18 to 24 or 18 to 30-year-olds. Does that move the needle enough to affect the outcome of an election? Of course it wouldn't. Of course it wouldn't. Now, it does speak to the weakness of the Biden camp that they are endeavoring to link themselves with Taylor Swift, and they are. I don't think that Taylor Swift has any interest in any of this. And I don't know the woman from Adam's House Cat. But I know that she's a good business person. She wouldn't be where she was without having good business people around her or without being a good business person on her own. And so let's be clear. I don't know that she has any interest in hitching her wagon to a doddering old 81-year-old fool. Her brand is too important to her. And 1349 says her fan base is now 40. Is it really? I mean, she's what, 30? What is she, 34?
30. Yeah, I think the top end of her fan base would be, in terms of the core, would be close to 40, yeah.
Are we talking about her country music fan base or her pop fan base?
Well, they kind of intermingled from the beginning.
Did they?
Yeah.
Once again, my knowledge and my appreciation of popular music ended around 2000. So what do I know? I mean, I don't. So
I'm here to help.
Thank you, Bill. I don't know that I have a lot of trust. I almost said respect, and that's not true. I do have respect for your musical taste. I don't know that I have a lot of trust in your musical taste, especially when it comes to your favorite band is ABBA.
Yes.
And that's all I'll say about that. It's 1220 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Coming back, all of the MSM, everyone within the mainstream media circles, at least that I have seen, they're all doing the same thing regarding this immigration deal. And I want to cut through it and make sure you understand where the subtle bias lies in mainstream media reporting. having to do with immigration reform, having to do with the quote-unquote bipartisan immigration deal that potentially could happen in Washington, D.C. That's on the way on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Selection is obviously important when it comes to purchasing, well, just about anything. People have different tastes, as we were just discussing. And so selection, when it comes to your safe purchase, is important as well. At Nashville Safe House, they have the selection unmatched in the industry. I don't know of a company, I don't know of a place where you can find more safes than at Nashville Safe House. They literally have over 200 in the showroom, and then they have a warehouse full of other safes. They've got a size, they've got a shape, they've got a price point available for everyone, and they've got the models that you've come to know and trust, like Browning, Fort Knox, etc. They have them at Nashville Safe House. Plus, they deliver the safe with professional delivery. They don't want a crackhead delivering your safe. These guys know safes. It's what they do. You know, a lot of the companies, they have like 3 in the corner, and they don't know a lot about them, and they're collecting dust. And not so with Mark in Nashville Safe House. A professional delivers your safe, vetted by Mark and his team, meaning that you can trust the people that you're allowing in your home. I wish I could say that for the other guys, but I don't know. A lot of them do subcontract work, and they do third-party work when it comes to delivery of your safe. Not so at the Safe House. NashvilleSafeHouse.com to find out more and to see the incredible selection with your own eyes. NashvilleSafeHouse.com, or go by and see them right across the street from City Cemetery on 4th Avenue South in Nashville. Tell Mark and his team that Matt Murphy sent you to the Safe House. $12:25 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy and you. Bell K's behind the glass, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as possible. We appreciate him. I would say Mac Morey's going to be back, but I think it's Jay Harper coming back a little bit later on, and that's all we'll say about that, correct? Yes, that's all we'll say about that. Mac feeling a little under the weather. Hopefully he feels better. And
Do we really need to keep it to ourselves?
I mean, you can read it. Read the text.
No,
read the text.
No. If you're not going to join me in this destruction, I'm not going to be involved in it.
I mean, it says Jay Harper's coming in to do news. There's another sentence. And then after the other sentence, it says that last part between us. I'm going to honor that because my hard and fast rule is this. Everything that I do in my life is an open book, and every interaction I have with anyone else is an open book, unless and until such time as you tell me it's not for radio consumption. And if you're a friend of mine, then I honor that.
All right, well, you're the leader of the show, so I'll go along with your philosophy.
I think we should honor that.
Okay.
There's a joke. I can't make a joke because then I wouldn't be, okay, I'm not going to make the joke. I'm not going to make the joke, Bell.
I understand.
Brent is in Winchester. Brent, thank you for your call. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm doing okay, although I gotta admit something to you, Brent. The subject line underneath your name and where you're calling from concerns me.
Okay.
I never thought that I would be doing this. I never thought that I would be on talk radio discussing Taylor Swift, but here I am.
I know. I'm the same way, but I think you're right, Matt. It doesn't move the needle. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of, you're my age. You remember Britney and what was his name? God.
Timberlake?
Yes, sir. Justin Timberlake.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels like the same thing.
Well,
like kind of a,
if you and this is where I mean I see it, I observe it as a non-fan. I see what's going on, and I think, well, I've seen this storyline before. I've seen Garth Brooks, I've seen Michael Jackson, I've seen Madonna, I've seen and what's annoying about it is that if you make those comparisons to Swift fans will very quickly tell you that no, Taylor Swift is bigger than all of those. To which I say, no, I don't think she is.
I didn't know it. It feels like the same thing to me.
Yeah, it does to me too. It does to me too.
That's all I was trying to say. We've seen it come and go at our age. I'm a little older than you. I'm like in my mid-50s, and you're, what, 50?
I'm 50 years old. That's right.
Yeah. So we've seen this. We have seen this.
I just don't want to be. I don't want to be the grumpy old man in the corner just because I don't really particularly. I mean, and look.
Get off my lawn!
I've tried to. I've tried to experience her music in a way that I understand why people go so gaga over it, and I don't. But I don't fault the people that go gaga over it for that. I don't get it. And it's not an old thing. There's plenty of younger artists that I think I appreciate and I get. I just don't get. I do not get the appeal for Taylor Swift. I don't understand why people go absolutely bonkers for Taylor Swift, and I do not believe that any of that will translate into the political world.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. Well,
I couldn't name a song. I'm sure if they played some songs, I'd say, oh, okay, I've heard that before. But I couldn't even name a song. But, I'm not that audience. But, we have a problem. The suburban women that we have a problem with, they dig her.
You're saying suburban women might be moved to Joe Biden because Taylor Swift tells them?
Maybe. I don't know. They got moved by the Roe v. Wade thing. And if that's what they really push on, that's all they have.
Well, here's the thing, and I don't begrudge her this, and I'm going to say this and I'm going to move on from it. Because I don't want to get into a big fight. And thank you, Brent, for the call. I don't want to get into a big fight with Taylor Swift fans. Taylor Swift does not and has never lived in the real world. Why would people who do live in the real world, who deal with real world problems, take advice from someone who has never lived in the real world? And don't tell me she has. I don't begrudge her that. I'm glad she grew up in a nice household. I'm glad she had a family that supported her art to the point that they were able. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong here, Belle. Tell me if I'm missing her biography. Her family had the ability to move to Nashville, Tennessee to support her music, right? When she was a 13-year-old.
Yeah, her father was like a hedge fund manager or something.
Right.
She grew up pretty wealthy.
She grew up wealthy. She's never wanted for anything. She's artistic enough, and she was popular enough, and she was talented enough, and I don't begrudge her any of those things, that she became very wealthy before she even reached the age of maturity. Why?
Yeah, she was a multimillionaire before she was 18. And that meaning that was her money that she had earned, not her parents.
But why in the hell would I take advice regarding the real world from someone like that who couldn't find the real world with a flashlight and a compass?
This is why I say I think she's preaching to the converted. The people that are getting excited about her having anything to do with Biden are already voting for Biden.
Well, that's or not voting.
Yeah.
And maybe she converts some non-voters into voters. But to suggest that this is a thing, I don't think it's... And once again, I don't understand the type of people that would be moved to vote because Taylor Swift tells them to. Those are stupid people. I mean that. If you're listening to someone like Taylor Swift for advice on how you should act in ways that will affect you in the real world, your job, the economy, our energy sector, our border security, do you think Taylor Swift understands what illegal immigration is doing to this country? Everything she does is behind a wall. Everything she does is behind a fence. Everything she does is insulated with security. Do you think Taylor Swift understands the nuance of the Second Amendment? Why would she give a rip about understanding the Second Amendment? She has armed security around her everywhere she goes.
Everywhere.
And I don't mean to get so passionate about it. It just destroys me that people are taking any of this seriously.
That's why I said, if you go back to what she tried to do in the 2018 election, and granted, she's a lot bigger now than she was then, but she could not even influence the people that were fans of hers in her home state to carry Bredesen into the Senate.
I think what bothers me about this and why I do get passionate about it is because I do believe that there are enough dumb Swiftie fans that would actually vote the way that she told her to vote. She tells them to vote without understanding that she has no idea what your life is going to be like. And I don't fault her for that. But I have a long-standing policy not to take anything that Hollywood stars or entertainment figures say seriously when it comes to the real world, because they can't possibly understand what you go through in the real world. They can't possibly understand how crime's gotten to a point in Nashville where young women are afraid to walk to their cars by themselves for fear that they will be accosted by a homeless person or someone that wants to do them harm. Why doesn't Taylor Swift understand that? Because she will never have to do it. She will never feel that fear. Now, she has other concerns and other fears and other responsibilities, and I understand that. What frightens me is that there are people who are easily swayed enough that we've gotten to the point in American society that the idiocracy is leading the way. And I guess what I'm saying is I don't believe that she can move the needle, but the reason I get passionate about it is I'm fearful that maybe she can. Because if Taylor Swift can move the needle on politics, then we are screwed as a nation. Absolutely screwed. If anybody takes seriously what Taylor Swift has to say about politics and the real world, we are toast. It's 34 after the hour. You know, I talk about speaking on what you know, and trust me when I tell you, I know food. I mean, just look at me on Super Talk TV and you can tell that. I understand food. I know good food when I taste it. And I know that when we use Savory spices in our food tastes better. And I encourage you to go to Savory Spice to up your food game as well. Holly and David are the owners of Savory Spice, 2 locations to serve you. I tell you about them all the time. One's in Franklin, just off the square in Franklin, next to Grace Pharmacy. The other right here in Nashville, L&L Market on Charlotte Pike. Savory Spice will up your food game. Now, for anyone that understands the kitchen, you probably are already going to Savory Spice, and you know what I'm talking about in terms of the superior spices that they serve. But if you don't know your way around the kitchen and you're looking to get better in the kitchen, they can help you do that as well, because they have different blends, they have different mixes, they have soups, they have crock pot items that you can fix, that they explain right there on the back of the package what you need to buy in the grocery store, how you need to prepare it. They have directions and instructions right there available for you, so you can up that cooking game in the kitchen as well. That's what it's all about at Savory Spice. Up your food game by upping your spice game. Up your spice game at Savory Spice. Once again, tell them that I sent you when you stop by in Franklin, just off the square, or in L&L Market in Nashville. Coming up a little bit later on the Matt Murphy Show, the FBI is garbage. But you probably already knew that. There's a news story out involving the Federal Bureau of Investigation that I'll tell you all about coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. Also coming up in the 1 o'clock hour, Representative Gino Bulso will be with us to talk about his legislation that would prevent the display of, well, specifically the rainbow flag in our elementary and other school classrooms in the state of Tennessee. We will provide details on that just after 1 o'clock with Gino on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Happy to have him on board with us. 615-737-9986. If you'd like to become a part of the conversation, Cedric has dialed up that number, and he joins us next. Hey, Cedric, how are you?
Matt, how you doing today?
I'm well. I'm doing good.
And I'll tell you, that Taylor Swift thing. Yeah, she kind of moved the needle a little bit, but I'm listening to that and watching all this, and the Republicans again. Excuse me, a lot of them are being distracted. That's a distraction. What they need to keep their eyes on is that Gavin Newsom and Michelle Obama. Pretty soon, they're going to be busting out as far as him running for the president and her as vice president. Nobody's keeping their eye on what's going on and how they're moving around. That's a total distraction, and they're biting that again, and they're going to wind up losing that election again by being distracted by a pop star.
Well, I do think that it's a distraction. I don't know. Well, and I think we got a little radio feedback there, Cedric, so I'm going to let you go. I do think that it is ultimately a distraction. I do think that there is a general fear that celebrities will move the needle in ways that they perhaps should not. I don't know that this isn't something that we've seen before. I think we have seen some of this in the past. Traditionally, entertainment figures and more celebrity-like figures, they don't really live in the real world, and so they are immune from some of the consequences of liberal policies and politics. And based on that, I don't even judge them as a result of it. I just evaluate it with that understanding that because entertainment figures, celebrities, they have amounts of money that insulate them from the real world. And I would suggest that in some ways that is a curse because, I was talking to somebody the other day. I mean, it's not like, I'll use Taylor Swift as the example. It's not like Taylor Swift and what's-his-name can go out to dinner. They don't have a relationship. They're not building a relationship in any way that we would understand. They're not going out to the movies. They're not going out to dinner because they don't have an ability to do that because of her celebrity fame. Well, that is somewhat of a curse in terms of living a normal life. At the same time, with that comes the blessings of money and security and freedom to do whatever it is you want to do. But you have a lack of understanding of what real people in the real world are going through. It's not just no celebrity truly understands, no individual that has reached a level of fame and monetary security, I think, understands how inflation, as an example, has affected the average American in the United States. Look, I've gotten to a point in my life where, by no means am I well-to-do, but I am financially stable to the point that fluctuations, for example, at the gas pump don't affect me. And in any real way, they're not going to affect my behavior, for example. But at the same time, I understand when they did. I remember when they did. I remember making adjustments in my other budgetary items based on how much it cost me to fill my tank up at the pump. And I know plenty of people who are impacted by these types of fluctuations in our economy right now. These are the types of things that we do need to consider. We need to consider who's going to get us entangled in foreign wars. We do need to consider who's going to deal with the border security crisis at the southern border that might lead to security crises here at home in the state of Tennessee. I think it's fascinating that Joe Biden is so bad at his job that he has to look at someone like a Taylor Swift to back him up. Don is next in Hendersonville with a thought on all of this. Hey, Don, how are you?
Hey, Matt Murphy, it was great talking to you. Thank you for taking my call. We can never underestimate the power of celebrity. If it wasn't for the power of celebrity, Jerry Ryan, who was in a bad marriage with Jack Ryan, would never have produced a Barack Obama for the state Senate in Illinois, and we would not have had 8 years of that mess. So Taylor Swift could easily change and move the needle just by being a celebrity.
Wait, who?
Jack Ryan. He was a state senator in Illinois. I'm sorry, I originally hailed from Illinois. Jack Ryan is who Barack Obama barely beat in the election to become a state senator. And the only reason Jack Ryan was a very popular politician, the only reason he lost is because Jerry Ryan, his wife at the time, the celebrity from, she was 7 of 9 on Star Trek. She was in a bad marriage with Jack Ryan, and she slandered him and made accusations of him taking her to strip clubs and doing all kinds of outlandish things, and it moved the needle, and he did not get elected. He was almost like a shoo-in, but instead we got some no-name, state senator who then became president of the United States. And it was only because she was able to move the needle on Jack Ryan.
I mean, you're suggesting that had not that happened, that there would be no Barack Obama. I don't know if that's true or not.
It's speculation on my part, but I don't think Barack Obama had enough following to be able to, even in a blue state as Illinois is, I don't think Barack Obama, being a new senator who did nothing but vote president for 360 some odd times that he was in the Senate, I don't think he had enough behind him to become state senator, then president.
Well, what propelled Barack Obama to the United States Senate and what ultimately propelled him to the presidency was the speech that he delivered. I think it was in 2004. I mean, he delivered a speech at the Democrat National Convention in 2004, and everybody went goo-goo gaga over it. I guess he was already a state senator at the time that he delivered that address. But I remember that is what propelled him to the national spotlight and made him somewhat of an inside-the-beltway name as a future guy to watch. Now, I think there's a little bit of a difference. I'm not discounting what you're saying. I mean, I understand that there are crucial moments in everyone's life that lead to better places or worse places, depending on how that moment impacts them. I mean, so I don't diminish that. And I think that you could probably point to vital moments in, John F. Kennedy's career, vital moments in Ronald Reagan's career that made the difference between this or that. And I understand what you're saying about Barack Obama. I think it's a very different matter to suggest that Taylor Swift could take a floundering and failing Biden campaign and turn it into a winning strategy in 2024 based on her endorsement alone. I think that's a different thing than what you're talking about.
Understood. Yeah, I believe she has celebrity. I don't think she is that strong to be able to drag what's left of Biden across the finish line to make him the nominee for the Democratic Party. I just can't see him. I can't see them propping him up with 2x4s to give him another 4-year term. To give him the full 8 years. I just can't see it.
Well, no, and once again, I'm not discounting what you're saying regarding the race. I don't know a lot about the race. I mean, 4200 says, listen to your caller. Jerry Ryan made Obama possible. Well, my point is, I don't discount that. My point is that's different than when you're a known commodity. Joe Biden has 60 years of public service for us to look back on. He is currently the president of the United States, and he is a failure as a president of the United States. This is not some young, up-and-coming senator who takes advantage of a marital spat between a sitting state senator and because of that elevates himself to a state senator status and then further elevates himself to United States Senate and then further elevates himself to the presidency. I just think it's two different things. Jerry Ryan made Obama possible. Sure, that's fine. That's all well and good. That could be the case. We're just comparing apples and oranges, I think. I do not believe that Taylor Swift, even if she has more gravitas than any other celebrity figure in the United States of America, I do not believe, or any other celebrity figure around the world, I do not believe she has the heft and the weight to convince us that Joe Biden is not what he is, which is a floundering, dementia-addled mistake as a president.
Give me a break.
Yeah, I'll give you a break. It's 12:30. 50 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Back right after this. Hey, friends, I believe there's a space or two still available for the Sentinel Crisis Response class happening this weekend. It is a limited space availability, but I do believe as of this morning, there was a space or two available. Let's talk about it. The world-famous GlockStore provides incredible customer service on the retail side of things. They also understand that selling a gun and understanding how to use a gun are two different things, and they want you to understand how to use one as well. That's why the Shoot 270 site exists. And that's why their shooting rooms exist. They understand that life doesn't happen in lanes, which is why you don't find shooting lanes at the GlockStore. You find shooting rooms. And most often, you'll find a trainer right there inside of that room with you, helping you along your journey. And that is what we're talking about when we talk about the Sentinel class. Go online at shoot270.com to find out more about the incredible Sentinel class. There's a video right there on the front page that you can look at to see if it's right for you. It is an intensive one-day class dealing with crisis response and the interaction between yourself and others when it comes to responding to dangerous situations. The Sentinel class is available at shoot270.com. Go to GlockStore.com for all of your retail needs, or simply stop by the world-famous GlockStore on Airlane Drive just off of Elm Hill Pike. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you to the one and only world-famous GlockStore. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. By the way, for those of you curious about these spots that are running on Super Talk 99.7 WTN involving Liz Cheney and John Meacham, I was curious enough that earlier this morning I went to the website to find out what would be required of me to attend this event. Not that I was necessarily going to attend, but curiosity got the better of me. And it is sold out. Although they're not actually selling tickets, registration was free. And I don't know what the requirements would be to attend because I tried to register. And upon trying to register, I found that there's now a wait list. But I also found something else interesting. So they ask on the wait list page, they ask, how did you hear about this event? And despite the fact that they have public radio listed as a way that you heard about the event, they don't have us listed. How did you hear about this event? Vanderbilt website, Vanderbilt social media, Vanderbilt newsletter, Unity project website, Unity newsletter, Rogers Center website, flyer, alumni outreach, digital advertisement, WPLN radio advertisement. That's public radio, right? Word of mouth or other. I guess we fall under the other category. Liz Cheney. Good luck. Good luck, Liz. There's a waiting list. We should all get on it. 1 hour down, 2 to go. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Representative Gino Bolso will come in to talk about House Bill number 1605. We'll tell you what that is next.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. A sobering assessment outlined by FBI Director Christopher Wray on Capitol Hill on the threats to the nation's infrastructure. Here's ABC's Jay O'Brien.
We announced an operation where we and our partners identified hundreds of routers that had been taken over by the PRC state-sponsored hacking group known as Volt Typhoon.
That was FBI Director Christopher Wray telling lawmakers about a just-announced FBI operation thwarting a Chinese hacking attempt to use routers to breach critical U.S. infrastructure.
Now, this operation was an important step, but there's a whole lot more to do, and we need your help to do it.
The White House says the U.S. military will carry out a multi-level response to the drone strike that killed 3 American service members in Jordan. Militant groups backed by Iran are being blamed for that attack. The rising tensions come as key talks continue on an extended pause in the Israel-Hamas war, a deal that would include the release of more hostages. ABC's James Longman is in Israel.
A flurry of diplomatic activity across the Middle East this morning as a deal may be close to release the more than 100 people still held hostage in Gaza and stop the violence, which has killed more than 26,000 Palestinians. U.S. officials tell ABC News a 6-week pause is being proposed, with the first phase seeing the elderly, women and children released first.
The West Coast bracing for more wind, rain, and snow. ABC's Alex Stone says California prep's underway.
Up and down California, people are getting ready for what's predicted to be days of heavy rain starting today in Northern California and then Thursday morning, right during the morning commute for Southern California. Shelters are open and some schools in Sonoma County and Northern California have closed out of fears of flooding.
The Federal Reserve Board wrapping up its policy meeting, and after weighing the latest economic data, has decided to keep interest rates unchanged once again. That could be welcome news for Americans trying to pay off credit debt and potential home buyers with a dip in mortgage rates. You're listening to ABC News.
You know, your appearance means something, right? I mean, your appearance, first impressions mean something. And if you are losing your hair, gentlemen, it is more than just hair loss that matters. It's your loss of confidence. And that confidence level can make itself known in first impressions, and that's not a good thing. Let's talk about that right now with Pii Medical. Their multi-unit hair grafting procedure is the only one in Middle Tennessee. It is the only one that can give you more hair in one procedure. It's trademarked. It saves you time, it saves you money, and nobody else has it. At Pii Medical, they say we grow hair. It's right there, their website, wegrowhair.com. This is backed by the only company that I will trust to protect my hair and that I trust to help you with your thinning hair with their hair transplant procedures. And they have many, many more procedures than just that. They've been in Nashville for over 26 years. I want you to call them right now at 615-376-6010. Gentlemen, if you're losing your hair and you don't know what to do about it, you need to dial this telephone number and get with one of their incredible folks and allow them to walk you through the procedure that can give you amazing results. It all starts with a private consultation. Go to their website at wegrowhair.com or make the call that so many others have made. Amazing results with the We Grow Hair. 615-376-6010. It is the Matt Murphy Radio Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN 105. Thank you for being with us. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Whatever time you're able to give us, I certainly appreciate that. Whether it's 5 minutes or the full 3 hours, that's our allotment of time. We hand off to the drive with Brian Wilson right around 3 o'clock or so. 4429 says, I think if you acknowledge that you listen to 99.7 WTN to Liz Cheney, it would probably disqualify you from showing up. I don't know if that's the case or not. I don't know how many in our listening audience decided that they wanted to go. Maybe a lot of people are signing up just to not go. It is a free event, it's my understanding, but you're now on a waiting list if you're trying to sign up to that event because apparently the facility is full. So, and once again, we're getting asked quite a bit why all of that's going on. We are an advertisement-based medium, and we're not going to – it's called free market capitalism. We're not going to turn that down simply because the majority of our listening audience perhaps has some consternation about the manner in which Representative Liz Cheney comported herself prior to being defeated and, you know, becoming a media darling in leftist anti-Trump media circles. That said, we'll suspend that conversation for the moment and talk about some state politics with Representative Gino Bolso. He is representing Williamson County and doing a really good job at it, and he has a new piece of legislation that I believe has been tabled that we wanted to discuss with him. Representative Bolso, thanks for coming on with us. It's always good to chat. How are you, sir?
Doing fine, Matt. I hope you are as well.
I am. How's the General Assembly, generally speaking, going thus far for you?
Very smoothly. You know, we've opened the second year of our 113th General Assembly session earlier this month, and we're already moving bills through committee and doing a lot of good work for the people of Tennessee.
There are some that would suggest that House Bill 1605 is a quote-unquote controversial bill. That's the first thing I read about it on the Tennessean website. I don't know that I consider it too controversial, considering my stand on displays, public displays of things like flags has always been fairly consistent, that I want prominently displayed the political sovereignty of the United States of America, the political sovereignty of the state of Tennessee, and everything else needs to kind of be subservient to those two symbols. Before we get into some of the particulars, just describe the impetus behind 1605, and for those who don't know what it does, explain it to us.
Sure. We have a law on the books right now, Matt, that requires all schools to fly the U.S. flag. And what we're doing with 1605 is expanding that section to list specifically other flags that schools are permitted to fly at their discretion, and further providing that they are not at liberty to post flags that represent a particular political viewpoint. And the background for it is that some parents in my county became upset that you had many classrooms where teachers and counselors were displaying the pride flag and attempting to use that flag as a way of influencing values that the parents were using to raise their children. And the essence of the bill is that parents should be allowed to decide what values their children are exposed to, not those who are sitting in a classroom in an academic setting that children go to by law in order to learn. And so the nature of the bill is one that returns to parents the right to raise their children with the values they want and to require that schools stick to what they do best, which is educating the child.
Are you finding this quite a bit in Tennessee schools? Are you seeing a lot of this? What level of conversation have you had with our school teachers and school administrators that would lead you to make sure that you want to kind of clarify what teachers are permitted to do versus what is impermissible?
Well, in fact, once we filed the bill earlier this month, Matt, I began hearing from parents all over the state. I don't know that it's in all 95 counties necessarily, but certainly from Memphis to Mountain City, as they say. Apparently, the presence of the pride flag in classrooms is just exceedingly increasing as time goes on, and more parents are becoming concerned about the use of that flag as a way of trying to indoctrinate their children with a set of values that they don't share. And yes, it's something that I have discussed with teachers, with school board members in Williamson County and in many of our other counties across the state.
You had a committee hearing about it yesterday. Tell me how that went.
It went very well. You know, we went ahead and began discussion on the bill. We had some residents of Tennessee testify about the bill. Ultimately, after a fairly rigorous discussion, we had a request that there be an amendment made to the bill, a procedural amendment. And so we didn't actually take the vote in the Education K through 12 subcommittee. We're going to delay the vote until next week so that we can add this procedural language to the bill that one of the members has requested.
What is this the concept of display and defining display, or is that something different?
That's something a little bit different.
Okay.
There was a concern that we want to give school boards the opportunity to comply with the statute before a parent or some authorized person had to file a legal action to have the school comply with the statute. And so the revision is going to be that a parent or other interested person who alleges that the act is being violated because some impermissible flag is being displayed has to give 10 days written notice to the school to allow it to act to remedy the noncompliance with the statute before any type of legal action is required.
And just walk us through, for those who, and I don't think I'm confused, Gino, but for those that perhaps are confused why this is an issue, I fully understand how any display of the pride flag has been completely politicized at this point. And you're seeing a lot of it in our elementary schools. And a lot of parents talk to me, and I'm certain they talk to you, about their concern that their fourth grader has to deal with politically charged elements within the classroom that they should not need to deal with, and that the parents feel like they should have the opportunity to instruct along those levels as opposed to public education. And I know that you've had these conversations, and I just want you the opportunity to speak to the broader audience about why this has become an issue that is worthy of concern to the point that you have filed 1605.
It has become a concern simply because there are so many parents, both in my county and across the state, that have objected to their local principals, local superintendents, local school board members who have not in any way responded to their concerns, because ideally you would never need the state government to become involved in something like this that is primarily a local issue. I mean, why is it that local school boards should not be able to decide, what type of flags are flown in their individual counties? Ideally, they would do that, but unfortunately, for reasons of political correctness or wokeness or otherwise, the local officials are simply not responding to the parents' concerns. They are rejecting them. They're effectively saying, well, our hands are tied. We have no control over what our teachers and counselors put on their desk or what type of values they attempt to use to influence their students. And so parents have come to us as the General Assembly and as their elected representatives for help. And 1605 is our way of helping, because the bill itself doesn't specify anything about a pride flag or any other specific political flag. It simply lists those that represent the values of all Tennesseans and says you simply cannot use the classroom as a place to display a flag that represents a political viewpoint, because that has no place in an elementary school or obviously in a middle school or secondary school for that matter.
Well, and that leads me to ask you this. Are you defining what is or what constitutes a display or not? Because I do know that there will be many that attempt to exploit whatever loophole they can find within the law. And I would think that that word would have a pretty hefty amount of weight within the legislation as to how it's applied in the classroom. What is a display? What constitutes a display in your mind?
In my mind, the word display is already in the statute, and the way that our law works is that courts are required to interpret a word like display in accordance with what's called its plain and ordinary meaning. And so to display something is to exhibit it, to put it in a place for other people to see. That's what display means. And because you are 100% correct, Matt, that there are going to be all types of contrivances that folks come up with as a way of getting around the statute, I think it likely that before the bill gets all the way to the floor of the House and to the floor of the Senate, that we will draft and insert into the statute a specific definition for what the word display means in this context, so that no one can start playing games with what display means, like, trying to, take a picture of a flag and posting it on a bulletin board or on a door or something of that nature. We're going to tighten it up so that we, I hope, can avoid that type of contrivance to get around the statute.
I mean, obviously, the usual suspects are going to come out of the woodwork and accuse you, Gino, of being anti-gay or, somehow anti-transgender by extension. They're going to accuse you of trying to infuse Christian values within the classroom. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity to respond to some of those criticisms that I'm sure you've already seen.
And I appreciate that, Matt. Yeah, we hear them. We heard them yesterday, and we'll be hearing them again next week. And obviously, I think we're called to love all people. We look at people as individuals. We don't define them by sexual preference or by what's nowadays called gender identity. I mean, we love all of them, Matt. But the issue is, what values should children be taught in a classroom? And that is really why I think you're seeing so much pushback, because there are so many that support that pride flag agenda that want to try to take all children and convince them that what they're saying is true, that you can become a boy if you want to, if you're really a girl. And that simply denies the truth of the body. It denies the truth of sexuality. And parents just rightfully have refused to put up with it. So we here in the General Assembly are going to do what we're called to do, which is to enact legislation that furthers the viewpoints of the more than 5 million Tennesseans across the state who put all of us in the Republican caucus here in the General Assembly.
Well, I mean, I think the reaction amongst some of those who have concerns about the legislation would be quite different if we were talking about a different type of material, a different type of flag, something that symbolizes. An easy example would be if a Christian teacher put a large cross on the wall within their school. Now, I think most Tennesseans would identify through the Christian faith and go to church and whatnot. But there would be some that would rightly step forward and say, hey, wait a minute, we're of the Jewish faith, or we don't worship the Christian faith in our household. We want to be. We don't think that that's appropriate for the school system. And while, I don't see the harm in it, I can understand the argument there. Similarly, I understand the argument that you're making with regard to 1605.
Exactly. And I think the U.S. Supreme Court crossed that bridge back in the 1960s when it removed prayer from schools under the basis that it violated the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And, because you cannot express religious views if you're a teacher or a counselor to students, obviously, neither should you be able to express other views from other religious or political viewpoints. And really, this legislation is completely neutral with regard to the content of any political statement. It simply says the classroom is not the place for this, especially in our elementary classrooms, where obviously children are the most impressionable and the least able to really combat this type of influence because they simply have not lived long enough to develop those skills of critical thinking that are essential to being able to make your way in the world.
Does the legislation say anything about, and I understand that there might be some amendments made with regard to display or whatnot. Several of my listeners, Gino, are asking about, teachers wearing things on their persons. I mean, you're not getting into any of that territory, right? Like flag lapel pins, for example, is the one that was brought up to me.
I would say that if you had a teacher that was wearing a pride flag as a lapel, that yes, that would violate the intent of the statute.
Mm-hmm. Very
because
good. Yeah.
Recall that the intent of it is to
remove the politicalization. Yes.
Exactly. And that's one of the areas where we're limited by the English language to a certain extent and how comprehensive the bill could be. And that's likely to happen once this bill is passed, and I do think it will pass. We're going to see others come up with different ways of trying to get around it, like they'll move from a flag to just a sign that maybe says in words or in substance the value that they want to communicate. And then we'll just have to deal with that as it happens. But right now, we have a prolific use of political flags in our classrooms. Parents are complaining about it across the state. Nothing is being done at the local level, and so we at the state level are going to act to address that problem. When new problems come up, if they are failed to address locally, we're going to be available to our constituents to act on their behalf.
Gino, you've got our support. I appreciate you coming on and explaining it for us, as you're always so eloquent when you do come on the radio show, and we appreciate your representation of Williamson County and of the state of Tennessee. Thank you so much.
Best of luck to you, Matt. Thank you. Bye-bye.
There's Gino Bolso joining us for a few good moments, representative who presented 1605 in committee. It was a contentious committee hearing. Many individuals attempting to misrepresent the point that Gino was making. And I'll make an ultimate point about flag representation in public spaces in just a moment. I took it on the chin, standing against the display of the Confederate battle flag above the state capitol in Montgomery, Alabama, when I lived in Alabama. And I'll tell you the details of that, why I stood where I stood then, and why it applies to what we're talking about now in just a moment. It's 1:22 on Super Talk. Just looking up on monitor number 2 in the robot, Mark Zuckerberg is apparently apologizing to families during a hearing regarding online child safety. Where is all of this going in terms of allowing your children to get on the internet? I mean, I don't know where it all goes, but I'll tell you this. If you're allowing, I don't know. I hesitate. I try to be careful about pretending that I understand what parents go through in 2024 with regard to their kids, because I don't have any kids. And the more I go through my life, the more care that I take in trying to assume that I understand the difficulty of going through things that I don't really have any concept of. And so I don't know the difficulty that parents face when it comes to online activity with their children. With your 12 or 13 or 14 or 15-year-old kid. It is easy for someone like Matt Murphy to suggest that you need to shut your kids down with regard to the internet until they reach the age of 16 or 17 or whatever it might be. Easiest thing in the world for me. Because I have no kids, which is why I like to remind you my kids are perfect. My kids make all A's. My kids have never given me one single discipline problem in school. They don't talk back to me because they don't exist. At the same time, I would suggest to you that the internet is as much a danger for your children as alcohol, drugs, sex abuse, because it leads to a lot of those things and so much more.
Do you think you missed out never having to go to school and respond to a teacher who accused your child of mooning the class?
I do believe that I missed out on that. I did. I saw one end of that. I saw the back end. I saw the front end. I didn't see the back end. Many did see the back end of that. My grandmother was not one of those people. She saw I guess in a way she saw the back end of it too. So what do you think about this bill? It would, Gino Balso described it adequately. It would prohibit the display of flags in public schools except those that were permitted under the legislation. The House K-12 Education Subcommittee heard from a variety of individuals testifying on the matter. The room was filled to capacity yesterday, as the committee heard debate on HB 1605, sponsored by Balso, whom we just heard from, representative from Brentwood. As amended, the bill specifically prohibits the display of any flags that, quote, represent political viewpoint, including but not limited to partisan, racial, sexual orientation, gender, or other ideological viewpoint. So the backstory that I was going to offer you, when I first got to Alabama, Alabama was flying over their state capitol, the United States flag, the state flag of Alabama, and the Confederate battle flag. And I argued at that time, and this was in 1999, it had been ripped off of the state capitol by one of the representatives, a Senator Alvin Holmes, who literally climbed the dome to get it off. It was replaced. There was a lot of debate going on regarding whether or not it should be there. And to me, it's pretty simple. That flying above the state capitol should be two representations of political sovereignty. The political sovereignty of the United States of America, that's the American flag, and the political sovereignty of the state of Alabama, directly under it, the state of Alabama flag. The Confederate battle flag has no place flying above the state capitol, regardless of the state's history, regardless of the fact that the state was under Confederate control for several years. That flag it has a very important place in the State Archives building. In our history, it has no place flying above the symbol of state sovereignty and national sovereignty in the United States of America. Similarly, as much as I want to see that symbol of our nation's sovereignty and the symbol of the state's sovereignty, much like if you're watching on Super Talk TV, we fly the flags behind our back here. the American flag and the state flag of the state of Tennessee. I want to see those flags flying in our classrooms across the state of Tennessee. Anything more is a political statement in and of itself and should be prevented. I understand that there are certain things that you cannot help with regard to some teachers that are going to bring their political affiliation, their sexual orientation into the classroom. And all I can tell you is this, and I know I'm pulling the card that I just said that I wouldn't pull when I was talking about online safety, but I'll say this. I've long stated that if I had kids, my kids would not be in public school because, sadly, there are too many things that I cannot control regarding my child's education in the public education system. I know that some school systems are better than others, but broadly speaking, the public education system has way too many loopholes to allow exploitation of my kids in a fashion that I would not appreciate. That's where I'm at on that. It's Brian and Ron's turn when we return. 132 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Sorry, I was in the midst of watching the best commercial advertisement I think I've ever seen.
For what?
Baked beans.
Well, I like the subject.
All right, so let me see if I can describe this ad that I was just watching. And I think it's from another country. I've never even heard of the baked bean company. It's called Hanes Baked Beans. Maybe it's it might be a fake ad. I don't know.
No, I think that's real. Let me look it up.
So the ad has American astronauts on the moon, and they're putting their flag on the moon. And this creature comes out from a hole and attacks them. And the creature just smushes one astronaut and destroys another astronaut, and you widen the shot and you see the creature looking around for other astronauts to destroy, and there's an astronaut hiding behind a moon rock, and the creature looks around and the creature's about starting to walk away, and it's turning around to walk away, and the astronaut is sitting there breathing real heavy, and you hear and the creature turns around, and then it goes to a black screen, and it says, baked beans, not for astronauts. Are you watching this right now?
No, I'm looking at an article from Inc.com that says what this fake commercial taught a $47 billion company about marketing.
Well, it's a fake commercial then. But it's pretty funny.
It's still funny.
It's still funny. Brian is in Greenbrier with a thought on the pride flag in our elementary schools, our public schools. Hey, Brian, how are you?
Good. How are you, bro?
I'm well, man.
I'm the guy that's kind of friends with Tommy Cunningham. I don't know if I should say it on the radio.
Well, I know I wouldn't admit my friendship with Tommy Cunningham on the radio. So I mean, I don't know what to tell you. No, I'm just messing with you. That's good. That's good stuff.
No, I know you are. And I disagree with you, so I should have been moved to the top. And I like baked beans, so we're all good.
All right.
I don't have a problem admitting that I'm anti-gay or anti-trans. It doesn't mean I want to hurt those people. You know, I wish they'd, in my opinion, fix their error or their ways. But the only thing I can do for them is pray for them. But when they push, because I work with a person that's trying to change to one gender to another, and it seems like he, she, it, whatever, always trying to cause trouble. And, you know, the people that I work with, we talk about that, and we go, you know, why does it even have to be an issue? Be what you are, who you are, whatever. But I don't brag about me fathering 5 children. You know, I don't have a flag that says, you know, heterosexual men unite. I don't know. It seems like you aptly describe things very well. I mean, sometimes I think, man, that guy, he's hooked up to a lot of brains because a lot of us think alike. And when you say things, I go, wow, I couldn't have said that better. You know, I also want to say one more thing. Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Let's talk. I'm sorry. It'll be long. 2 weeks ago or so, you had the bad day. You remember that?
I do.
And I felt so sorry for you. I just want you to know that. I felt I tried to call, but there was a lot of people calling, and I know, you know, you said something about depression and all that. I don't really suffer from that. I love the sun shining today. It makes me in a better mood, even though I try to stay in a good mood most of the time. But I want you to know there's people out there praying for you, because if you have that little bit of a problem, I can see, I have a son like that, and I can see where you go when people, you know, you were just saying what you thought. No, I didn't agree with what you said either. I wasn't going to call you an ass. I consider you a friend. Well, I heard you say that. I heard you say, somebody called me an ass, you know, on the text or whatever. And
I apologized for that.
Well, I know you, huh?
That's Bell K talking. Bell says he apologized.
Y'all are good. I mean, if you are that kind, the kind of way that you say, sometimes you get a little depressed because whatever you're.
Well, I allow the weight of the way this country is heading to get weigh on me. I allow it on my shoulders on occasion.
I get
and
it.
It scares
100%,
me,
brother.
It scares
I
me.
do. And you're at the age where it can make a difference, whether you have children or not. And I know you don't, but it doesn't matter. You care. You know, I always said one time, somebody said, well, you don't know anything about it if you don't have it. Oprah don't have children. How she give children advice? I had a preacher friend tell me one time, brother, you don't have to step out in front of a bus to know it hurts if it hits you.
You know,
you don't have to.
Well, that's true. And I've thought about this, Brian. I don't know, you know, some have asked, well, why didn't you have kids? And it never happened for my family, for my wife and I. But sometimes I wonder if I would be able to do the job that I do if I had kids.
I think you'd be a hell of a father.
Well, you're very kind to say that. I would love to. But in terms of the job, because I mean the consequences of the actions being taken by the bureaucrats in D.C. and the dunderheads and the General Assembly, and there's some good people over there too. I joke when I say that, but the consequences of their actions are very real to me, and they're very real to our future. I don't know how it could get more real, but obviously it does when you have kids, and I don't know. I assume that you do, Brian.
I do. I have grandchildren, brother, and I'm you know, my parents used to say that about my nieces and nephews. I'm the baby of the family, and they used to, before I had children, they'd say, what kind of world are they going to face? And they had gone through the Depression, World War II, with my dad serving. My mom and dad went through a lot of bad things, and they would say that. And now I'm kind of saying it, but I try to remind my wife and my children and my friends, don't say that. You know, don't say, God, what kind of world are they going to? God is on his throne. He has this. We're not going to destroy this world. No nuclear weapon, no man, no Kim Jong-un, freak, crazy people. They're not going to do it. God's still in control. So just pray, bro. Just pray.
Amen, brother. I love it. Thank you, Brian.
And
hey, and tell Cunningham the next time he's ready for a whooping, I got my golf clubs ready, okay? Just tell him I said that, okay?
I'll tell him you did.
All right, see you, man. There's Brian calling. Making me feel better about the future of this country with that common sense approach. We were talking about this bill, and it's being called a controversial bill. Why is it controversial? I'm trying to figure out the thought process and the reasoning behind people who are against it. The bill 1605, which I expect will get through the House, I think this thing will pass. It basically says, let's fly the symbol of the United States of America, the symbol of American sovereignty represented by the American flag. Let's fly the symbol of state sovereignty as represented by the state flag of the state of Tennessee. Good flag, too, by the way. I don't know if we've ever had that conversation. Some state flags suck. Tennessee's got a great state flag. The 3 stars representing the 3 regions, the quote-unquote 3 states of Tennessee, unified by the circle. I love it all. I love it, every bit of it. Why would we allow for a school teacher to infuse a political or even a social discussion, if that's the way you want to frame it? Why would we allow a school teacher to introduce that subject matter to our elementary school children? Or even our high school children? Last I checked, it's perfectly permissible to think differently about that matter. And while, for example, no one is suggesting, at least to my knowledge, that everyone should not be treated equally under the law. And to the point of the previous caller, there was a time where I understood the aspect of quote-unquote gay pride. Now it is a little lost on me, inasmuch as what are you so proud about? Well, there was a time when you had to be, quote, in the closet. You had to be afraid of being outed for fear of public backlash. That time is way, way gone. Combine that with the idea that you have told me that it is not a matter of choice, but a matter of birth, then I would suggest that there's not a lot to be prideful about. And there's certainly nothing that needs to be addressed in that arena in an elementary school. Can we not leave that to the parents themselves and to their religious faith or whatever they want to do within the home in that regard at the time of their choosing? I don't understand what's so controversial about requiring in the public education system that we keep away from the political nature of that flag, because that flag is inherently political. I don't think there's any question about it. Would we allow for the flying of a BLM flag in our classrooms? If not, why not? If so, why? And what is the difference between once again, the United States flag, while we have never been a perfect union, we strive to be a more perfect union, and we have overcome some of the sins of our past. And I would suggest, as a libertarian with a small L, that I have long believed that regardless of your sexuality, that you ought to be able to live a life of your choosing so long as you do not deprive others of their ability to live a life of theirs. Well, we've gotten there. Congratulations. Bully for you. There was a time where we weren't there. Now we are. But that's not enough for some people. They want to, yes, I will say it, indoctrinate your children against your better wishes. And let me tell you something. If we suggested, is there a Christian flag? I mean, I know that the different denominations have different flags. Well, let's just call it the Christian flag, whatever that means to you. If I were to suggest that we fly the Christian flag in our classrooms, because a majority of the state of Tennessee wants it, give me a break. Are you kidding me?
It's a white body with a blue box up like you would see on the American flag with a red cross in it. That's the Christian flag.
There you go. Let's fly that in our classrooms and see how far that gets us. Of course, it would be challenged, and I would expect that it would be removed. Because if you fly the Christian flag, now you fly the... is there a Jewish flag? Are there different denominations that you have to fly? Is there different symbology that you have to go to? And now some moron Satanist comes up and they want to fly the Satanist flag, and you're just opening up a Pandora's box. How about limit it to the symbol of sovereignty of the United States of America, the symbol of sovereignty of the state of Tennessee, and that's it. And let the rest of that stuff happen at home. Well, the reason that there is pushback is pretty obvious. The pushback involves indoctrination. It is not enough that the gay community, sadly, for some, not for all, because I try not to make blanket statements on this show, but it's not enough for the gay community. It seems that they've achieved a level of equality where they expect equal treatment under the law. They get equal treatment under the law. Now they want to demand that they know better as to how to teach your children regarding this issue, and they get to supersede the wishes of the parents? Of the parents? Are you kidding me? No, I'm not kidding you. They truly do. Those that support flying the gay flag in our elementary schools are truly supporting a level of indoctrination that supersedes the ability of the parents to teach their kids about these matters. And that's wrong. It represents everything that I consider to be wrong within the public education system, that they think that they're more important than the parents. They're not. And it's time that we stopped ceding that ground and took it back. 151 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It can be hard to find someone that you trust when it comes to large home repairs. I'm talking about your heater and your AC right now, and Efficient Heating and Cooling is that company. They're not the biggest HVAC company in Nashville, Tennessee. They are the best. Jeff Eddy and his team, his qualified technicians, will come out to your home. No matter what time you call, they'll never charge you overtime. They don't believe in it. They know that your heater doesn't know what time it is when it goes out, so why should you pay more because it's 7 o'clock in the evening as opposed to 4 o'clock in the afternoon? The best way to head off costly repairs, breakdowns, and more is to simply maintenance that unit. You don't want to early replace your unit. That means that you haven't properly maintained and you're losing, in some cases, thousands of dollars. If you don't properly maintenance the unit, that means you lose 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years of life off of that unit, and that could cost you that amount of money. If that is the case, that you need maintenance, let's call Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. Or if your heater's not working properly in the cold evening time or morning, let's make that call that so many others have made. Go to efficienthvac.net, efficienthvac.net, or call 615-784-4424. 784-4424 for Efficient Heating and Cooling, a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric and an elite pro partner with Rheem. It's Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy and you will be joined by Cameron Smith coming up in just a couple of minutes. Excited about that. Your telephone calls as well, 615-737-9986. Many of you making the decision to communicate via the super text line. We appreciate that as well. 4209 says Liz's best decision was not going hunting with her pop. Tommy writes in, any Liz Cheney hunting trips available? I don't know. We're promoting this hunting expo coming to Nashville later on in the week, and we're simultaneously promoting Liz Cheney. I don't think the two things are interrelated, but maybe. In the meantime, many of you agree with my assessment that any argument against just keeping it to the American flag and the state flag of Tennessee is a level of indoctrination. We're concerned about that. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We continue coming in just a couple of minutes. We'll have news time and a visit with Cameron Smith. Also, in the last hour of the show, I have an update on Bruce Willis. Beloved actor Bruce Willis. That's coming up in just a moment.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. A Senate bill crafted by both Democrats and Republicans to boost funding for border security could get derailed in the House. GOP Speaker Mike Johnson, in a speech on the House floor, says the bill will not go far enough to resolve the crisis.
Does not include, from what we've heard, these transformational policy changes that are needed to actually stop the border catastrophe.
Fellow Senate Republicans, though, say House Republicans in search of a perfect bill will end up doing nothing to fix the crisis at all. GOP Senator James Langford of Oklahoma helped draft the bipartisan border bill.
We have to be able to resolve this. Americans see this. When I was back home for a short period of time this weekend, Republicans, Independents, Democrats were all contacting me and saying, we've got to resolve this.
The Senate Judiciary Committee holding its latest hearing today on social media safety for children, with tech execs facing a firestorm of questions about protecting minors online.
Democrats and Republicans joined in their condemnation of social media. Senator Lindsey Graham pointed to the suicides of teens who've been sexually exploited or extorted.
You have a product that's killing people.
The CEOs, such as Discord's Jason Citron, pushed back on the need for new laws protecting minors and removing liability protections.
We're not prepared to support it today.
Graham blamed his colleagues, noting 5 bills the Judiciary panel has already cleared remain stuck in the Senate.
They go nowhere. They leave the committee and they die.
Stephen Portnoy, ABC News, Washington.
The Federal Reserve Board keeping interest rates unchanged due to improving economic data, it says, that's helping tame inflation. But Fed Chair Jerome Powell, in remarks, says don't expect rate cuts anytime soon.
The economic outlook is uncertain, and we remain highly attentive to inflation risks. We are prepared to maintain the current target range for the federal funds rate for longer, if appropriate.
Keeping the rates unchanged could give Americans new hope to buy a home if mortgage rates continue to drop as they have since December. You're listening to ABC News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN, just after 2 o'clock, 2:05 to be precise. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate whatever time you're able to give us. We have 3 full hours every single day, Monday through Friday, from noon until 3, until Brian Wilson comes along, and that will happen in less than an hour from now. The Drive happening this afternoon. It's a part of live and local conversation, information-fueled, and opinion-driven. Here's some breaking news that'll make you smile. A judge has dismissed Disney's lawsuit alleging retaliation by Governor Ron DeSantis. Disney had made an allegation that Governor Ron DeSantis and a state board unfairly retaliated against the company for criticizing state education policy. A federal judge today dismissed their lawsuit against Governor Ron DeSantis and members of a state board for allegedly retaliating against the entertainment giant after the company criticized the state's limit on classroom discussion of sexuality in lower grades, commonly referred to as the Don't Say Gay bill, despite the fact that it doesn't say anything about saying gay. DeSantis and other defendants in the case argued that the lawsuit should be dismissed because Disney couldn't sue them over a constitutionally enacted state law. Florida's Republican-led government stripped Disney's control over a special development district. In other words, they took away the autonomy that they have enjoyed over its theme parks, including the Walt Disney World Resort, as a result of the disagreement. I like every bit of this development, every bit of it. I wonder if our next guest will like it as much as I do. He is Cameron Smith. He writes for the Tennessean, amongst other publications. He is heard weekly on our radio show and more often when time permits and people are out. Hello.
Hi.
How's it going, Cameron?
It's good. I actually love Disney losing here because DeSantis, and nobody wanted to talk about it this way. They were like, don't say gay, all this other stuff. What DeSantis did with the special district that Disney enjoyed previously is basically saying, you need to be like everyone else.
Yep.
And I will always support that. Like equal application of the law. No special goodies because you're magic.
Well, it's one of the reasons that I was so steadfastly against the bailout of the banks, despite the fact that I understood the financial calamity that would ensue in 2008. And it was George W. Bush that agreed with the idea of too big to fail. And I'm like, wait a minute. If something's too big to fail, then it shouldn't exist. Not in a free market system, because if something has to be propped up by the government for fear that if it fails, that it's going to cause enough economic, then that's something that shouldn't exist to begin with. So we need to let those things fail, and we need to go through the process of building back up our financial institutions the proper way. Otherwise, the government gets in the business of picking winners and losers.
Well, and this is what Tennessee's in right now, a Smile Direct Club. Like that company failed. Mm-hmm. It one time was valued at $9 billion.
Smile Direct Club.
And the state gave it all these incentives, and now it's like, well, we're a creditor. I'm like, well, guys, that means you're probably going to get hosed. Like, you're probably not going to get your money. And I get it that folks want to play the economic development game, but man, it's handouts, and we need to be real careful about that. Just have lower taxes. Common sense regulations that you don't change all the time. Like,
I get that in certain circumstances that you are trying to attract businesses to your state and you want to make your state as attractive as possible. Try to do that for all the businesses as opposed to just the select large few.
Yeah. And that's all. Because this is the thing that drives people nuts. If you're big and powerful, you get goodies. Mm-hmm. If you're just like a car wash owner, a laundry company, you don't get goodies. Not as many.
I've never understood entertainers like big-time celebrities getting free meals. It's like, that's the last part. You should be giving free meals to people that need free meals. They can afford them. I don't know. I don't understand.
Well, it's marketing because, hey, if Taylor Swift's in the house, they're going to buy your stuff.
I was proud. We went an hour, Bell. We went over an hour without mentioning Taylor Swift on the show, and now Cameron has brought that back up. Do you think that she has – there are some that are I understand that there are some that are suggesting that she's a government agent.
Big if true.
Mm-hmm. And she has, all of this power, and then she's going to execute this power right before the presidential election.
She has all the power. She shakes it off,
I should stop it. I should just – it's the only way we can do it.
I get it.
You understand.
No, I think the whole thing is stupid.
And then
he just slams the door.
No. Bell comes in. We're on Super Talk TV, by the way, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. You can find us on Super Talk TV in those platforms. And hello, how are you? Cameron's here. And by the way, a fetching top.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, apparently you were not properly framed on camera, and so Bell came in to frame you properly. But
I was trying to use camera 3, which was the room shot, with both of you in the same shot, but it won't sit still. I could put the values in on where I want it to frame, and I get you guys framed, and then it just floats up and turns to the left. And I switch it back, and it floats down and turns to the left. And I switch it back again, and it floats up and turns to... It's frustrating.
Always to the left?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of conspiracy.
I see what's going on over there.
Floating to the
happening
left.
over there. Our camera's floating to the left. I know who broke
Tennessee DNC has gotten in our camera.
Yeah. They've
Pretty sure that's not a
infiltrated
thing.
our camera. But my favorite part of the process is the fact that you crawl because he knows that if he walks in here, he's going to be caught on camera.
He doesn't want people to see him.
And so he crawls back and forth, which is pretty funny.
That's not true.
You do, too.
That
I just
is not
watched you
true.
do it.
That is so untrue.
You didn't crawl?
No. I just walked right by.
You're a liar. So what is different between the quote unquote, don't say gay bill? All that DeSantis is saying is that, there are certain subjects that should be left to the home and that are impermissible at certain ages within our school systems that we're asking that they not be a part of the curriculum. I had Gino Bolso on. I don't know if you've seen this bill, 1605.
Is that the one that's given the authority to parents to sue, or which one?
No,
is
this one is in our classrooms in the state of Tennessee, in our public education classrooms, we believe that we need to see the symbol of political sovereignty of the United States of America in the form of the American flag. We need to see the symbol of the sovereignty of the state of Tennessee in the form of the Tennessee flag. We don't need to see pride flags anymore. It would, and I'm cool with that. And I don't understand the argument against it.
We don't want to.
I think it's
That's it.
I think it's indoctrination. It has to be.
I mean, people have values that they want to see replicated, and a lot of teachers, I get it. They're vocationally teaching to build a future, and they want that future consistent with their values. You don't have a First Amendment right in the classroom. You are an employee of the state of Tennessee. There's things you can't say, but the idea that, well, you're entitled to your own viewpoint, and that's what you promulgate with the kids. I understand why people are there. I'm fortunate that I have kids in all kind of different educational environments, and 2 are in public schools, and their teachers and coaches are pretty good about just teaching the basics and going from there. And they know their teachers have different politics or all these things because you can pick up on that sort of stuff. But the indoctrination in the sense of I'm countering the things that you're being taught at home versus being consistent with them. The idea that these kids belong to the educational environment and not to
That's
a
my big
family.
problem.
That's
That's
where
right.
I really start chafing.
Well, and it's perfectly okay for the school system to take and the individual teachers to take a very neutral approach to certain things that you're being taught in the home that from family to family, from child to child might be relatively inconsistent.
Yeah.
It's perfectly okay to have a neutral approach. That we're not entering into that arena, and that's for the home, and what's left for the home is for the home, and what's for the school is for the school.
Well, so here's a good example. If my kid, who's 14, freshman at Nolensville High School, goes to a teacher and said, I'm a Christian, but I have questions, and I'm not sure about all this stuff. What do you think? If for that teacher to say, hey, there's a wide range of perspectives on faith. Some people don't have any at all. Some people are Christians. That's something you need to decide. And there's plenty of people to talk to. That's fine with me. If that teacher says, you should really think about becoming an atheist, that's now a value departure where we're not partnering anymore. It is, you have a different worldview than me. You're in the classroom. I'm in the home. We're in conflict. And I don't want that.
And here's where I'm going to clap back at an organization that on occasion, it's my understanding you write for, the Tennessean.
Sure.
The article, and we had Gino on to discuss the issue, which I find important to kind of cut through what I believe is the subtle bias in the reporting on stories like this. The headline, Tennessee a bill to ban pride flags in public schools delayed amid intense debate. That's fair. Headline's fair. First sentence, a controversial bill that would prohibit the display of pride flags in public schools across Tennessee was delayed Tuesday amid rising concern among lawmakers that the bill would be too restrictive. I read the entire article. The article never explains why they describe the bill as controversial.
Because they don't agree with it.
And then that's the point, is that obviously the author doesn't agree with the bill. And because the author doesn't agree with the bill, they insert the word controversial. But if you want to be accused of bias, do it that way. If you want to try to settle in a neutral place, then explain to me. Explain to me who's against it and why they're against it. They never explain that. And I'm very curious what the explanation would be.
Well, my deal on this is let's just be consistent, right? So if you're telling me that we must allow the rainbow flag because there are students who are gay who want to feel welcome, like, cool. There are students who are Muslim. Mm-hmm. There are students who are, let's allow those flags too. Like, you must have these flags, and we'll have flags everywhere.
We're going to have a lot of flags,
right? Man. And so my point is, if you specifically prescribe, you can have the American flag, you can have a branch of the military flag. There's no other flags. There's no political advertisements. Like, this is a, we're here to educate. We're not here to proselytize.
Or indoctrinate.
That's fine. Like, that to me is like, that is reasonable. It's consistent. It's evenly applied. And as long as you do that, that's okay. But to suggest, well, I should have the LGBTQ rainbow flag, but you can't have your Christian flag. You can't have your Muslim flag. You can't have this Gadsden flag or a MAGA thing. Either you open the door and let everything through, or you close it and prescribe it. That's it.
Jason writes in and says, hey, make sure that Cameron understands that he can't hang a Mitt Romney flag in the classroom.
Jason, I need to know what that flag would look like.
I think it's the Mormon flag.
I need to know what that flag would look like.
It's just like the magic bloomers, like magic pants flying. That's what I would say.
I will not hang underwear in any classroom ever.
That's pretty funny though. No, you're right. I mean, and the alternative, the free-for-all alternative is not something that I think anybody wants. I don't have any kids in school, so I don't know the answer to this, and maybe the listeners on the super text line can help, and maybe you can as well, Cameron.
Sure.
Because if I were to believe, and I know it's not real life, but if I were to believe libs of TikTok on social media, every school teacher is gay. Like, every school teacher is gay. Every school teacher has rainbow hair. Every school teacher wants to indoctrinate my children and, like, turn them. Like, every single one. I know that that's not true.
It's not true.
But if a parent in a public school setting tries to involve themselves, this is a serious question. If I involve myself in my child's class to the point that I meet my teacher and I find that my teacher is that type of person, that they cannot help but try to indoctrinate their values into the life of my child while in that classroom, can I, as a parent, request a different class?
You can for any number of different reasons. And I think there it would be a little bit difficult. And I think this is what has parents more concerned, is it's a blind spot, right? But so when I send my son to school, I trust that those teachers are going to do certain things to educate him. I don't know because I'm not in the classroom, right? And if there were some conflict that I had with a teacher, I'd absolutely address that. But I think we got to be real careful here, particularly as we get older, right? Like, you're in high school and stuff. You need to be able to encounter different viewpoints, different perspectives, different life choices, and be okay with that versus saying, I have restricted the universe for my child so that whenever they get out of here, they're going to hit it at some point, and they got to know, hey, this person disagrees with me. And one of the big problems is everybody's preaching at everybody. And then everybody's getting mad about everybody preaching at everybody. And then pretty soon, we just break everything. And I'm telling you, by and large, this is not a major problem. Like, the teachers that I have engaged, and I have engaged with many, have fidelity to the curriculum, and they teach it, and they encourage the kids. That's what they do. Now, I'm sure there are some because, hey, I've seen Twitter too.
You know,
it's just I haven't encountered it. And so
I don't think that it happens with the regularity that we would believe if we relied solely on social media as our case evidence. But at the same time, I think it creates that dynamic by which parents are fearful because they don't know what to do if they were to encounter it within their child's classroom, because they don't want to be labeled either. And genuinely concerned parents could easily be labeled as homophobes or whatever it might be, simply by expressing their concerns. It's that reverse style bigotry that lashes back at parents if they voice concerns.
And that's where I do pay very close attention. Like I said, the coaches and teachers that I have with my kids are partners with me, and I know that. And I also understand it's a public school, so there's certain things they can't talk about. They're not reinforcing biblical memory at school, right? But character they are. And so there's a lot of positives there. But at the moment that I feel like they're wedging between me and my child, and they want to be the one that is really doing the intense parenting and raising, that's a no-go for me.
And I got a lot of clapback 20 years ago when I expressed my desire for neutrality within the classroom too. Like, I don't mind that they aren't praying in public schools because I'll pray at home.
Right.
And I think faithful parents do that as well. I also understand that in a religiously neutral government arena, that if you open that door up, then you're opening that door up to a lot of other things. What I don't like, so that neutral zone, I'm right there. What I don't like is that we've swung the other way, and it seems permissible to fly the rainbow flag in the classroom now. But if I send my kid to school with the Christian flag, then I'm going to have problems.
Here's the deal. And this was smart. This was a really interesting way to do it, is we have religious perspectives that because of the separation between church and state, no, we can't have that in education. But then we had moral perspectives that weren't explicitly religious that we were like, oh, well, those are definitely allowed. And so what happened is, well, guess what? Christianity has a sexual ethic to it, and it's a viewpoint on sexuality in this context.
Right.
You've got a viewpoint on sexuality. They should be treated similarly versus one is a religion that you can't have. The other is just perfectly normal. It's science.
Right. And so naturally what you're saying is, so fine, if you're going to open that door and have the pride flag in the classroom, if you are interested in that level of neutrality, then you should be presenting an alternative viewpoint that you claim you can't present because of the religious.
Right. So you're foreclosing the option. I'm not against anybody saying, hey, I'm gay and I want people to know it. I don't want to be jammed in a closet.
Fine.
Of course. But the flip side is I have views on sexuality because of my faith that are views on sexuality
that are completely legit.
You're telling me I can't have that perspective, but you can have the perspective that you want to have. That doesn't seem consistent.
Yeah, you open the door wide for the discussion, and then if I raise my hand and say, hey, my moral and religious teaching tells me this, then I promise you're going to slam that door in my face. Right. If that comes up.
Because if I raise
God...
So
now you're picking winners and losers.
Right. If I say the word, I can have my perspective, but the moment I say I have it because God said so,
shkaboom,
done. And that to me is where I say, well, you're not being serious here because you have moral perspectives. I have moral perspectives.
So
Let's
you
have
can
that
have,
discussion.
if you wanted to have it that way, that's fine. But what you want is to have the rainbow flag in the classroom and not have that discussion either.
Right.
So now you're picking a winner and you're picking a loser, and that is wrong in public education. That's a great subject. Okay, coming up, I promised that I would give you an update on Bruce Willis, a beloved actor who is going through issues involving dementia. We do have an update from Demi Moore, who is his former wife and remains a good and close friend to the family, and obviously is the mother of a couple of his children. We'll give you that update coming up, plus an update from a legislative perspective that I'm very, very excited to get from Cameron Smith. We'll tell you what that's all about coming up next on Super Talk. Taylor Swift is a government operative.
Can't hear you.
Taylor Swift. 228 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Coming up in a moment, we're going to get an update from Cameron Smith on, it's an exciting update. I'm not going to say any more. I'm going to allow Cameron to update you on a piece of legislation that you might want to know about coming out of the state Senate, the General Assembly over on the Senate side. In the meantime, I promised you this update. Demi Moore is obviously still a friend of Bruce Willis's as he suffers from dementia. She spoke out on this. She's promoting a show that she's in, I guess, The Feud, Capote versus the Swans, which my wife tells me she wants to watch. She spoke candidly about her ex-husband's health battle, saying, and it just breaks your heart, anyone who has known someone who goes through dementia, anyone who has known someone who has lost their ability to remember and to enjoy those memories, it's one of the cruelest things that someone of an older age can go through, in as much that a lot of times our physical limitations prevent us from continuing to enjoy life. And what we are left with are those memories that we have of our loved ones and the experiences that we've had over the course of our life. And dementia takes that away. And so it's brutal. Demi Moore expresses that in a conversation that she had on Good Morning America, saying, I think given the givens, he's doing very well. What I'll say is what I say to my children, which is it's important to just meet them where they're at and not hold on to what isn't, because there's great beauty and sweetness and loving and joy out of just that. And I think it says a lot about where Bruce Willis is at, and it says a lot about how we should treat people who do or are going through dementia. Moore previously encouraged other families struggling with dementia to let go. She said, when asked what message do you have for people who are out there who have family members who have dementia, Moore said, when you let go of who they've been or who you think they should be or who even you would like them to be, you can stay in the present with them and take the joy and the love that is present and there for all that they are, not what they're not. And I think that's just really important words. I don't know. That says a lot about where Bruce Willis is in his journey, but it says a lot about how we can act around people who might be in a similar place in their journey.
It's awful. And I mean,
it is awful. It's
tough. Man, I've walked that road with my grandfather, and he was not the person that I remembered. He was a shell. But you know what? You got to remember the times that you've had. And like you said there, take them for who they are.
Right now,
in the moment. And some of it's rough, but I'll tell you what, it really helped me remember you must invest in those relationships and spend that time, because you never know when you'll be gone. You may be alive, but you're not there anymore. And that's a big deal that people need to pay attention to.
Well spoken.
Don't wait.
Yeah, well spoken. 232 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We'll tell you about some of the action going on in the General Assembly. You'll want to hear this. It's pretty cool. That's coming up next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good afternoon. It is indeed 2:32, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We're looking at 49 degrees, a bit of sunshine out there. We'll have a complete weather forecast for you here in a couple of minutes. Just a quick traffic alert for tomorrow. I-24, Rutherford County. Crews are going to be out there dealing with those potholes at mile marker 78. That will be tomorrow from 9 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. They're going to be shutting down 2 lanes to do the work, so you know that is going to be an issue for you tomorrow, so just keep that in mind. No change in interest rates again. The Federal Reserve today announcing it's keeping them right where they've been for the last several months. Here's ABC's Andy Field with more.
The Fed keeping interest rates between 5.25% and 5.5%, but it's not lowering them.
Inflation has eased from its highs without a significant increase in unemployment. That's very good news. But inflation is still too high.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell saying inflation is heading in the right direction. He's not certain it will stay that way and is holding off on any rate hikes or cuts for now.
We have learned the identity of the person killed during a shootout with police earlier today in Springfield. TBI says it was 28-year-old Kevin Chapman. Police say a suspect pulled a gun and opened fire, and officers returned fire. No officers injured in that incident. That is the latest. Weather's on the way. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
The Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief is here for you in Franklin, and they have been for the last 30-plus years. Dr. Gill assembled an incredible team of chiropractic physicians, individuals who understand pain and pain management and understand that you would like to manage your pain without the necessity for needles, without the necessity for popping pills, and without the consideration for surgery. And that's what they've been doing for these last 30 years. And now that team approach has benefited you and people just like you, because there's no waiting. You sign up, you get that initial consultation and appointment. You meet with Dr. Wendy, Dr. Dominic, Dr. V, or one of the many great chiropractic care physicians at the Dr. Gill Center, and off you go on a road and a path to a pain-free life in 2024. And that is what it is all about, my friends. So if you have back pain, neck pain, knee pain, hip pain, elbow pain, any pain whatsoever on your person, whether it is spinal in nature, skeletal in nature, or soft tissue, let's give the Dr. Gill Center a call and allow them to help assist you in making yourself pain-free. That's what it's all about. 615-882-4838, 882-4838. The Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief is located in Franklin. The Tennessee Men's Clinic wants to talk to you, gentlemen. I know that I get personal with you guys quite a bit when we talk about the Tennessee Men's Clinic, and I don't mean to, but I'm here to tell you that you need to get right by some numbers in your life. You need to know certain numbers. And, man, I get how you are because I'm the same way. I avoid the doctor like the plague, right? But sometimes you need to go to find out some of those things that might be causing you energy loss, might be causing you sluggishness in the afternoons. And if you're just, subscribing it to, well, Murph, that's what happens when you get 50. Do not do that to yourself. If you're feeling sluggish or run down, tired, or grumpy, if you've noticed weight gain or loss of muscle mass, it's time to get to the Tennessee Men's Clinic and allow them to, quote, unquote, put you through your paces. Now, really all that means is about an hour consultation, an examination. They'll get some blood from you. They'll go over the findings of what they find within your body in terms of your numbers. And then they have an avenue for success for you, whether it's whether it's creams, whether it's potion. They'll figure it out with you at the Tennessee Men's Clinic, and they will help you get back to that energy level that you've enjoyed for so many years. Give them a call, as so many men have done. 615-208-9090, 208-9090, or go online to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. That's TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. Every time this bumper starts, I think it's Barracuda, and it never is. Oh, Barracuda. Matt Murphy and you, Cameron Smith, along with us, 615-737-9986, if you'd like to be a part of the show, either via telephone lines or through super text. So there's been some activity in the Senate that you were pretty excited about, that I am now pretty excited about, and I'm not going to steal your thunder. What's going on?
So this was really cool. Some of you guys will remember when I was filling in for you, this was, I don't know, a month ago. It was a while ago. I talked about a column that I had written that in Williamson County, the policy, we're foster parents. We had a son that ran afoul of the juvenile justice system. We get a call that he's been picked up, and we're told you can't talk to him for 24 hours. To which I'm like, well, excuse me? And the column's over at the Tennessee, and you should go check it out to get the sort of backstory. But Majority Leader Jack Johnson heard the segment and reached out and said, hey, what's this about? And I explained the situation and said, hey, we've got two things here. One, parents are cut off from their kids in a legally precarious situation, and it's inconsistent across different jurisdictions. I found that out while we were on there. Folks called in and said, well, that's not, it's this way over here and that way over there. Said, we need to be consistent here. And the second thing is, under the Tennessee Rules of Juvenile Procedure, minors are able to waive their rights before talking to a parent or counsel. And I said, that's a bad idea, because kids are taught to trust law enforcement. And that's a good thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But that means if they get picked up and the police officer says, what happened? And they just spill the beans and say everything, that can be used against them in court. And for me, I think it's really important that those rights are protected for juveniles as well as adults. And so this was a situation where, again, in the whole process, people were kind to our family, kind to our son. The judge was great. Everything, by and large, was fine. But this issue of you're cut off was a big problem. And then same of waiver of rights. And then I talked to Senator Johnson, and he said, look, we want to be responsive to this. We want to engage this. So there's a caption bill that they have introduced. And a caption bill is basically a placeholder so that you can beat the bill filing deadline and then come back and amend it and put the text you want in there. And that's SB 2507. And so I just wanted to applaud you guys as listeners, the fact that you engaged a topic, and we have legislators responding to that and saying, we want to, when our constituents and other folks are having a discussion about an important issue to them, we want to be responsive to that. And so kudos to Jack Johnson for engaging here. And I'm going to continue to work on that process. And hopefully we have the opportunity to work on other stuff.
So right now, if you look it up on the General Assembly website, you'll see this. SB 2507 by Jack Johnson, juvenile offenders, as introduced, permits a court to order a child who is adjudicated as a traffic violator, in addition to the child's parent or legal guardian, to pay a fine of not more than $50. And you're thinking, well, that's not what Cameron just said. But what you're describing is that might ultimately be a piece of this, but Jack just wanted to get something in place to make sure that he can file amendments to it and kind of flesh it out in this session as opposed to having to wait till next.
Right now, it's just a placeholder. That's probably old legislative text that they said, okay, we're just going to introduce this. We'll revisit it because they wanted judiciary staff to engage. I want to engage that process. But
the point is to give parents the right to be a part of the legal process as opposed to what you had to go through, and that is, no, you don't have a right as a parent right now to go into the room, to be with your kid.
Right. And you can argue public safety, but I'm like, the kid's in lockup. I can't take the kid out.
Don't forget what you told us on the air. They refused you entry as an attorney that wanted to represent them.
Well, it's not refuse entry. It is, I am a licensed attorney in the state of Tennessee. And so I said, well, can I talk to him because I'm a licensed attorney? And they said, no. And I said, well, so I can't talk to him as a parent. However, the rule and the policy at Williamson County Juvenile Justice was if you're a pastor, access it at any time. I'm like, wait a minute. You're telling me that a pastor who my son does not know, because when this happened, he'd been with us 4 days, could walk right in and just say, hey, how you doing? What's up? But I, as a foster parent, couldn't. And I checked, and it was not limited to foster parents. It was all parents. So it doesn't matter that was what the policy was.
It's almost, and I believe you, it's almost hard to believe.
Well, read
that this is a part of the law right now in certain jurisdictions as they apply it.
Yeah, and my argument is that it's not, that it's actually illegal, and I put the policy up there on my column and linked to it because I had to go through a records request because I asked for the policy when they wouldn't let me see them. I said, I want to see your policy. You need to tell me, and you need to produce it immediately because that's what the law says. They refused it. The court director for the juvenile justice says, you're upset.
What?
I'm like,
what? Yeah, I'm upset because I can't see my kid. Sure.
She said, we'll talk about this later. And I said, excuse me? The Tennessee records law requires you when I am here and ask you for it to give it to me. Period. And
not later, not, oh, you're upset.
And I don't think they knew where it was. I don't think they did. They just had been telling each other this is the policy. And
so it seems as if they've been kind of getting away with this because nobody has called them on it.
Yeah, well, this is what happens with juvenile justice, and this is how things in government get sneaky and messed up, right? Because, one, people get embarrassed, their kid gets picked up, they don't want to talk about it anyway. And then it's only 24 hours, so, I got to talk to him after that, and so we'll let bygones be. No. When it comes to government, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And as a conservative, to say, explain that to me. What is the reason for? Well, we don't. It's just the policy. Don't care. Like, we limit government in Tennessee. That's what we're going to do. And I'm proud that a guy like Jack Johnson represents me and says, yeah, we're going to get on that because we want to make sure that parents have an opportunity to engage their kid at a legally precarious moment.
8212 writes in, and this is my thought process too. Can you imagine the number of parents that have been through this that did not have an understanding of the law like you do, or did not have access to the airwaves like we do to draw attention to this sort of thing, that were just dismissed? They were just like, no, you don't have the right to see your kid. Wait a minute, I'm the parent. That's an underage child. They don't understand the law in the same way that I do. They don't know. Nope. 24 hours. So bad. So sad.
And I'll be clear. The judge over juvenile justice, fantastic. It was great. The court administrator dismissed me and was quite condescending to me. And I quickly explained, well, I'm going to write an editorial about this. I'm going to write a column. And then we're going to talk about it because this is wrong. And she was very much, her face changed a little bit when she heard that. But she had just tried to say, you're upset, and just rush me out. And that's what she'd have done to every parent who had said, hey, tell me the policy. I'm not arguing to get my kid out or anything. I just want to know what's the policy and the basis for it.
Right. So just so I understand it, this person said, no, you don't get to see your kid.
Right.
And you said, I want you to show me in writing how that is.
So we get the call, and I say, well, I want to talk to him and make sure he's okay. You can't. It's against the policy. well, can I come drive up there and see him and make sure he's okay? You can't. He's fine, but you can't. That's the policy. It's 24 hours. So we go for the detention hearing the next day to say, well, are we going to let him out, or what are we going to do? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when, at that hearing, I said, hey, I just want to see the policy in writing.
And you already knew they were required to show you.
Yeah, I knew the law. And I just said, you need to tell me the policy. Well, you're upset. Well, we'll talk about it later. I'm like, and then she tried to say, well, you're a foster parent, so it's different. And I said, all right, well, then show me the policy that says that, not just your feelings. And my wife is looking at me because she's like, oh, no, here he goes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are your legal responsibilities toward that child any different because you're a foster parent versus biological?
In certain contexts, they can be. In this one, they aren't, and the policy doesn't distinguish.
Okay.
And so what I had asked, that's why I asked for the policy.
Do we need to call out this administrator?
So I don't value that, right? Because her behavior was not good.
Well, but these are the type of bureaucrats that I think need to be called out.
Well, she's called out in my column because I put her name in there.
Oh, well, then, in that case.
You can read the column, and it's there. Because I think, look, we want to, and I want to give you a shout out too, and Bell, like, you've built something that people are paying attention to. And to use that for the people of Tennessee and to support them and the rights of them and their children is a big deal, and it's something I'm excited to be a part of.
No, it's very, very important. And it cuts to the chase of, sadly, and look, I don't pretend to understand what this city administrator or county administrator goes through on a regular basis. I'm sure that their job is very hard.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to do it the right way. And you have to understand that you're serving the people. And when you forget that, you get an attitude, and traditionally, this is what it leads to.
And people are condescending to me all the time. Roy, Jason, Ray, I know you guys. And you know what?
Mitt.
And I don't care on that because I'm in a unique position with commentary and things I say. When somebody is condescending to me, and I am a proxy for other parents that could be in that same position, I take it real seriously.
That's right. 615-737-9986. By the way, you can go to the Tennessean. Cameron writes. He's in conservative corner over there in the Tennessean, and he writes for those folks. You can find that column there. And I appreciate you doing that hard work, and I appreciate Jack Johnson for doing something about it. And we'll keep you updated on 2507 as it moves through the General Assembly. We'll find out what Brian Wilson has on tap coming up in just a moment. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN 51 after the hour. Stories we will not get to today. The FBI is garbage and needs to be disbanded. There, that's all I've said about that. This is in reference to the story that came out last night about the FBI being found to be in violation of hundreds of Americans' constitutional rights in this raid out in Beverly Hills, California. They literally raided safety deposit boxes and told the people that, whose boxes had been raided there wasn't anything that they could do about it. And the Fourth Amendment has a little something to say about that, and so did the court systems. Brian Wilson might or might not have something to say about it on the drive this afternoon. What is up, Mr. Wilson? How are you?
The sun is shining and it's 46 degrees, but it seems colder than that. And I got a chill in my bones and I can't get rid of it.
I know what can help, but you can't have any of that until about 7.
No, you give me a few hours though, and maybe I'll take care of that. There was a big hearing today, and it's one of these rare moments where it was bipartisan, and some social media companies really got hammered for not looking out for the interest of children on social media platforms. The sad cases where children have committed suicide over things that happened on social media, etc. And I'm telling you, they got crushed by Lindsey Graham, by Josh Hawley, and by our own Marsha Blackburn, who is the ranking member of the committee that held the hearing. We're going to talk about that, Chinese hackers, border news, Second Amendment news, and, of course, 2024 news. A lot ahead right here on The Drive.
Well, we look forward to it, Brian, and I know that Mark Zuckerberg offered somewhat of an apology to the people assembled in the gathering. So look forward to that conversation with Brian Wilson coming up on The Drive. That happens right after Jay Harper delivers some of the headlines that you need to know about, and that is happening right now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Have a wonderful afternoon. Enjoy The Drive. We'll talk to you tomorrow at high noon. Until then, folks, hug your loved ones. So long.